it's going to look something like that. Time for holes. Okay, what I've done is I've actually measured and found out it's 26.25 millimeters from the edge of one slot to the center of where I'm going to be drilling my mounting hole. So I have taken my dial indicator, I have moved it to 26.25 millimeters, and I have locked it down. What you can't see, well, here's the line right there. That's going to be the center of my drilling pattern. I don't know what the frequency of that line is going to be yet, but it will be in there. With my line scribed out, I was able to measure out some places I'm going to be putting my holes for my screws. This starts in 25 millimeters from this front edge, and then I do 100 millimeters past that for a pattern that is just this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and so forth. This is going to be the same on all pieces, so they should be all exactly the same. And I am going to see what size drill bit I need. I'm going to need a Forstner bit in order to put this in. I'm going to have to check the depth too to make sure that it's going to work properly. But we're hoping to get these holes drilled and this board mounted, and cut the length too. Length is important because I can only surface so much of the table. I am going to be cutting my table short. So my spoiler board is going to be shorter than my table, so that I can surface the entire spoiler board. Now if I need work to hang off of that, it will have to hang off free, or I'll have to surface another piece to the same dimensions as my spoiler board and bolt that down at the end of the table for extra support. But at this time, I'm not really envisioning needing to do that. So at this point in time, I'm going to try to get these holes drilled so that I can get this and the other 3 pieces mounted to the table today. Okay, so I have a 1/2 inch Forstner bit set up in my drill press, and I have got a, don't know what this one is, it was just stuck to my magnetic strip over there, but it fits my M5 flange head screw or bolt nicely with the M5 T-nut. So we're going to do a couple test drills, and we're going to see how that fits, see if it secures properly. Fingers crossed. We're running about 1,000 RPM, only because the bit is a little bit larger in size, so I want to get it done. I do have my depth set to 3/4 inches from this spot right here, which will be a little more than halfway through. As you can see, that creates a little bit of shavings and whatnot, but all in all, makes a pretty clean little hole. Next is to just punch a hole through where the tip left a indentation, and it should be centered and it should work properly. But we will know in a moment after I punch this hole through. I'm sure everybody has one of these blocks in their shop. It's the block that you drill everything into. This one has been abused and used for years and years and years. So all in all, it's going to make a hole that looks a little bit like that, so that when we put our M5 Allen head bolt in this thing, it should sit way below the surface of the spoiler board. and it does. It also gives me room to thread on my T-nut, my little tiny baby T-nut right here. And I'm going to go over to my table. I'm going to see how this fits. This should actually fit pretty snug. I'm hoping that this works really well, and this will be the solution I have to mount my spoiler board to my table. Now, in a previous video, I had said something about using threaded inserts. I'm not there yet. We'll get to that point. I already mounted it to my spoiler board, and I want to show you guys that, and it is really quite secure. So, what you can see is that it is mounted, and it's on there. I mean, it's not moving. I mean, I can twist it around, but it's on there pretty decent. And I'm going to proceed with getting the rest of these on there. I think this will actually be a really good solution to get those on. I'm going to get the dust collection set up so that I don't have all this MDF material flying around my shop. And I'll be showing you time lapse of me drilling what is known as a lot of holes. That's one way to put it. Okay, to surface my spoiler board, I'm going to be using probably one of the least expensive bits I could find on Amazon. It's just a 3-wing. This is a 2-inch diameter, 1/2 inch shank bit made by Needlemac. It had some pretty good reviews. It looks like it's okay. I mean, the carbide inserts seem to be welded pretty good. They're not perfect, but it looks like the cutting surface is okay. So I got this bit, and then I purchased an ER20 collet that would accommodate that. So I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to show you that I need to cut my spoiler boards that I just got done drilling in order to have them surface 100%. So we're going to put this in real quick. I'm going to be removing this collet. This is actually my 1/4 inch collet that I got. It's actually designated 1/4 inch on it, not to be confused with some of the other collets. And just like any other collet, you kind of put it in at an angle, and then it'll snap in, and it won't fall out. And the same way to get it out, you kind of tip it to the side. Of course, now that I've said that, it doesn't want to come out. There it is. So you tip to the side and give it a little pull backwards, and it should come out. So I put this collet in here, same thing, going from the side. Here it click, now it's in there. And this should accommodate my 1/2 inch bit as such. So let's get this thing mounted. If it is making any weird noise, chatter, hum, hum would be caused by vibration, and that would make the whole machine kind of hum or rattle or buzz a little bit. So we're going to try to minimize any chance of that happening as long as we can. So with the machine powered on, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this all the way to its extent. I was taping things down to try to measure things. That's what these are for. That's what the measuring sticks for. That's what my paper's for. We're going to get this out of the way. Don't need that anymore. That was for spoiler board stuff. But I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to run all the way to my extent. I'm going to put this down. So we're going to run all the way to our extent, so we can see and make sure that our spoiler board surfacing bit will actually, if you can see, it is actually going to go over the edge of this, and that's good. That's exactly what we want. Now, to make sure that it goes over the inside as well, that's going to be pretty close. I just hit the mechanical stop, as you can see, so I need to hit my override and then put some distance back in it. I gotta hit the reset on here too. Alright, and put some distance back in it. You can hear the mechanical stop on switch. I will now re-enable my mechanical stop so that it will work again. But it's going to be close on this side, on this inside of the spoiler board. What I may end up doing is doing most of it and possibly coming along and planing the rest off by hand, just to make sure that it's lower than the majority of it. But the other thing that I wanted to do was go to my other extent, so we're going to go all the way as far as it will go. That is not as far as it will go. But one thing to note and point out here is that of the surface, we're going to see that this does not truly go to 900 millimeters. We're going to see that this goes to about 860 before the mechanical stop engages. Alright, sorry, 806. Not even 860. So about 806. So we see that the center of the bit is about right there. We're at about 810. I think I measured it before with a V-bit at 806 from this front edge all the way to the back of the travel, keeping in mind that this carriage will overhang the front edge a little bit. So we will get a little bit more out of it than this, but this does give us a good idea as far as what our total ability to machine for our table is going to be. And that is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of about 820 millimeters from the leading edge. So I am actually going to mark that and move this. Actually, I'm going to move this, then mark it. Keeping in mind, I'm speaking about 840 with the surfacing bit. With a V-bit, you wouldn't get close to that, but I just want to see if I can extend this. About 820 is about as far as I can go. Unfortunately. And 820 is actually a stretch. It's more like 815. So we'll go to 815. Oops. Alright. So with those marked and with this set, I'm going to move this off this limit. We're going to remove these and cut them all to length. So I made extra holes I guess I didn't need to make. Live and learn, right? So I'm going to remove these, I'm going to mark them, and then I'm going to cut them and I'm going to bring them back. So we'll be back in a little bit. So if I have done this right, all of my pieces are cut down in length. They all have their T-nuts attached, and we are ready to put 3 of the 4 on the table and go from there. Let's see how this works. Almost think it was designed to do it. Alright, with that in place, we're going to tighten up. Helpful hint, if you spin them really fast, the T-nut kind of sticks where it's at and they tighten up. Alright, things to note here. I am actually planning on using my hold downs that I got with the table. And I just had one right here. One thing to note though is I've taken the screw or the bolt out of the back because we're going to have a lot less clearance now between this and the table. It will minimize the amount of the height of the stock I'll be able to attach, but if all has gone as planned, this should slide in. And should slide all the way to the end with little to no difficulty. So when all is said and done, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like it has an MDF surface over the top of it. I am using these small clamps to hold my distance as I screw all of the other screws down. They do have a tendency to move a little bit. Actually, this one at the end got a little tight. But it gives me a little bit of flexibility. the next step in this process is to actually run the surfacing bit back and forth on here, creating a lot, and I mean a lot of sawdust. So that's going to be the next part. Okay, so what we've got so far is I've got my spoiler board mounted to my machine. I have got my 2-inch surfacing bit mounted. I have got Green Day going on in my headset, and I have got my tool path, which I will share with you. It is just basically, it's a 580 millimeter by 806 millimeter at 0.05 millimeter clearing tool path, which I can run multiple times if I re-zero. That should level this out pretty good. It does have a ramp on it, and it does have a perimeter clear. So I'm hoping to run that, but this is what it looks like so far. I've got my unit zeroed up. It is at 25 millimeters over the top of my work surface, and I do have my RPM set to 14,000 RPM, which is 2,000 less than the maximum RPM that the manufacturer has recommended. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully things don't break and come flying off. Okay, we got an E0 error on my VFD. I'm going to make some assumptions that my speeds and feeds are a little too aggressive for this bit, seeing as how it stopped spinning. So we're going to do some little bit of manual overriding. I'm going to increase the speed. I'm actually going to switch my VFD to manual. I'm going to increase the RPM, and I am going to lower the feed rate probably to 50 or 25%. We'll see if that works. And we're going to watch it this time. We're going to keep the dust hood off for a little bit. And I might utilize the pause to put it back on after we verify that it's working properly. But let's give this another try. pressure and let it stick. So that's where we're at. Okay, so we finished our surfacing operation, and I did notice one thing while I was doing it. It does not appear that the head is trammed properly to the surface, meaning that it is not perpendicular to the machining surface, which means you'll get a little bit of a scalloped effect when you do a surfacing or clearing path like this. I'm going to show that to you in just a second. One thing I also kind of had planned on, and you may have seen me do real briefly in the time lapse, was that I did stop the tool path right before it finished because I wanted to maintain my depth of .053 millimeters and negative 0.53 millimeters, sorry about that, and I wanted to make sure that I tried to get as much of the waste board as I could, so I actually moved my gantry to its extents, and I did utilize the mechanical limitations, the mechanical limit switches of the table to find my end points, and I did machine from there. But I want to show you the surface that got machined, and you'll see what I mean by scalloped. So in the surface, you can kind of see pretty easily right now that it is smooth through here, but as we get further along, it kind of has this wave pattern, this scallop pattern, and you can kind of see that throughout the waste board. I'm probably going to be putting a dial indicator on here and finding out what the peak and valley of that scallop pattern happens to be. I don't imagine it'll be very big. It's noticeable to your fingertips, but I don't know if it's going to be worse than maybe a quarter of a millimeter here and there. If so, I actually have enough waste board that I could actually tram this unit and machine it again. But we're hoping that we don't have to do that and that it is minimal, and I can maybe hit the entire surface with a large block of sandpaper to get it to be perfectly parallel with the cutting edge. Most of the work that I'm going to be doing is going to be shallow pockets that'll be finished past and V-carving. So that particular aspect of my table is not as important as if I was doing large pocketing operations and things of that nature. So we'll find out. Okay, so I had that little tiny lip on the CNC machine that was causing an issue, whereas it didn't cut all the way to the edge. That's fine. That just means that, you know, my spoiler surface, my spoiler board is actually a little bit larger than my work area, and that's all fine and dandy. But I need to take that lip off, and I made this little tiny jig. I'm just using a Ryobi palm router, and I basically set my bit to be about maybe 1/28 of an inch higher than this surface. And because there is just a little bit of flex in this board, it seems to be just enough to let it trim itself off, and I could probably hit that with a piece of sandpaper and it would take it off and have it be completely smooth. But I literally threw this jig together in about, I don't know, 10 minutes. Just a piece of, I don't even know what this is, it's not quite 1/4 inch. Maybe 1/4 inch MDF with a piece of 3/4 inch MDF, just screwed together, and nails. I put in probably about 12 little nails with the pneumatic nailer, and it works pretty slick. So I'm going to show you how this works in just a second. So if you run into this problem, you can actually solve it yourself with just a palm router, which you may have gotten from your prior CNC machine. Maybe. Anyways, I'll show you how I use it in just a sec. Okay, so the way this is going to work is that this flat piece here, which is, you know, just a piece of MDF, is going to ride on the table surface that I just cut and I'm going to take off this little tiny lip that's right here. And it'll only take a second to do it, so let's get it done. One thing I did want to tell you is that if you noticed, I stopped and started my router off the surface, and the reason that I did that is because due to the little bit of flex in the switch that's up here, it does have a tendency to bow a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, or bend a little bit, which actually causes the head to dig into the spoiler board a little bit, which I don't want. I did actually have that problem over here, right in this spot right here, where I turned it off right there, and it dug in a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. So, but that's all there is to it. This is now smooth, it is cut, it is finished, it is ready to go. I just need to vacuum it off after that little brief surfacing, and then I'm going to take this other little thing that I made, and I'm going to attach it to the side of my spindle carrier, or my spindle clamp, and I'm going to measure the little bit of difference in what looks like a little bit of scalping issue that I have on the spoiler board. But we'll get to that probably in the next video, not in this one. But at this point, this spoiler board is ready to go, and that's all there is to it. I'm ready to actually carve.